dot product of a vector. Let's say suppose we have v1, we have two vectors dot another vectors. So what will be the dot product of this? The dot product of these two vectors will now be alpha 1 dot what? Dot also alpha 1 plus what? Plus alpha 2 dot plus alpha 2 multiplied by what? By alpha 2. And what if I have the two vectors again? I have vector 1 and vector 2 dot each others, and then I have to say what will be the dot product of what? This and this. The dot product of this is the same thing as alpha 1 multiplied by what? Alpha 1 plus what? Alpha 2 multiplied by alpha 2 plus alpha 3 multiplied by what? Alpha 3. Dot product is whereby if I have a vector, let's say I have 2i plus 3j, and let's say I have a second vector which is 3i plus 2j. So the dot product of these two vectors is the same thing as 2 and 3, which is 2 by what? 3. I will first multiply the one that contain the same vectors. I and I multiply them, j and j multiply them, k and k multiply them, and then addition, then plus open bracket 3j multiplied by 2j. So this is dot product. This multiplied by this, don't forget these are vectors. This multiplied by this is the same thing as 6 plus what? 3 multiplied by 2 also the same thing as 6. This should now be equals to 6 plus 6, which is what? Which is 12. So this is v dot what? v1 dot v2. The three pairs which are I, j, k, if I dot what? I is the same thing as 1, and j dot j is the same thing as 1, and k dot k is the same thing as 1. That's why the time that I'm going to dot that vectors v1 and v2, I combine the one that contains I. So by dotting them is multiplying. So as I multiply them, I get away the I and j, and at the end I find a scalar. So what if I have I dot what? J, and also I dot what? Dot k, and also j dot what? Dot k. I dot j, I dot k, j dot k, it will be 0. This means that I dot j is 0, I dot k is 0, j dot k, it is also what? 0. So you have to take note that the angle that is between two vectors, let's say I have two vectors, let's say I have vector A. Okay, let me say vector 1, it has alpha 1, alpha 2, and what? Alpha 3. Let's say I have second vector, let me say I have sigma 1, and I have sigma 2, and I have sigma 3. So these vectors must have an angle. So the angle between these vectors, it is given by theta, which is the same thing as what? Cos inverse of this vector. What I mean is dot of these two vectors, v1 dot what? Dot v2 divided by what? The magnitude of this vector and this vector. So I have to say v1 and what? And v2. So this is how you can find the angle of what? Of vector in dot product. So let's have some examples. Let's say suppose if, so I have to first take a look to this. I have to figure out, and I'll say v1 dot v2 is the same thing as the value of v1, which is 2i plus 4j, and therefore dot, it says dot what? Dot v2, which is 3i minus what? Minus this. The next thing that I'm going to do, I have to say the I and I will say 2 multiplied by 3, and therefore plus Then I'll say this multiplied by this, 4 multiplied by -1, and this should now become 6 plus what? -4. This is the same thing as 6 minus 4, and all is the same thing as 2. So the dot product of this first question, it is what? It is 2. So the next that I'm going to do, I have to say v1 dot v2. So I have to first take a look to v1. v1 is negative I1 plus 7j plus 4k dot v2, which is 6I plus 2j. Sorry, this is negative sign. This is minus from the question, minus 1 over 2k. Then I have to use the dot product by separating each. -1 multiplied by what? -1 multiplied by 6. Then I have to say plus 7 multiplied by 2. 7 multiplied by 2 plus 4 multiplied by -1 over 2. 4 multiplied by -1 over 2. Then this should now be equals to -6. I have to say plus 7 times 2, which is 14. I have to say plus this, which is 2, and here is 1 multiplied by, which is -1. So this should now become -2. So as you can see, if I say the 14 minus 2, it will give me what? 12. So I have to say -6 plus 12. This should now go with this. I will left with 6, positive 6. So therefore, positive 6 is the dot product of what? Of the second question. So here is another question that you will have a try on it. Feel free to pause the video. Over there you will find the correct answer. So the question says, again, we are to find the dot product of these two vectors, v1 dot what? v1 dot b2, and therefore I have to say v1 dot b2 is the same thing as the values of what? The value of v1, vector of v1, which is 5i minus 2j plus 3k dot v2, which is -4i plus j plus what? Plus 6k. So the next thing to do is that I have to use the dot product 5 and 4. 5 multiplied by -4 plus j and j, -2 multiplied by 1 plus k and k, which is 3 multiplied by 6. The next thing is that multiply them, -20 plus 2 multiplied by 1, it will give me what? -1. Negative and plus, it is negative, minus what? -2 plus 3 multiplied by 6, which is 18. Minus this and this, I will end up with minus what? -22 plus 18. So if you minus 18 from 22 at the end, you will get what? You will get 4. So minus 22 plus 18, it is -4. So as you can see, the dot product of this question, v1 dot what? Dot v2, this is a final solution. We are to find the angle between v1 and this vector and what? And this vector. Don't forget with the formula that says angle is the same thing as cos inverse of what? v1 dot v2 divided by the magnitude of v1 and magnitude of what? Of b2. The first thing that I'm going to do from the first question A, I'm given v1, so I have to first find the magnitude of each. Let's first find the magnitude of what? Magnitude of b1. Magnitude of v1 is the same thing as square root of what? 1 square plus -2 squared plus what? Plus 2 squared, and which is the same thing as what? 4 plus 4, which is what? Which is 8 plus 1, which is 9. Root of 9 is the same thing as 3. So the magnitude of this is 3. So let's again find the magnitude of this. What will be the magnitude of this? Magnitude of this is the same thing as taking the root of negative 3 what? Negative 3 squared plus 6j plus 2 squared. Okay, sorry, no any more j again. So 3 squared, which is 9. 3 squared, which is 9, plus what? Plus 36 plus what? Plus 4. This plus the, it will give me 40 plus 9. At the end, the root of 49 is what? Is 7. So let me find again the magnitude of what? Magnitude of this vector what? Vector 3. So the magnitude of this should now be equals to, if I take the square of what? 2 square plus 7 squared plus what? Plus 6 squared. 6 squared. 2 squared, which is 4, plus 7 squared, which is what? Which is 49, plus 6 squared, which is what? Which is 36. This plus this, at the end I will get 54 plus 36. I'll get what? I'll get 10, carry of the 1, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'll get what? Root of what? Root of 90. So let's find again the magnitude of B4. Magnitude of this should now be equals to negative 3 squared plus 6 squared plus negative 6 squared. So the next thing that I'm going to do, I have to square it. 3 squared 9 plus 6 squared, which is 36. 6 squared again, which is 36. So 36 plus 36 is the same thing as 12 with a carry of 1, which is what? 72. And 72 plus what? Plus 9. This will give me 11 with a carry of 1. At the end I'll get 81. So which is root of what? Root of 81. And the root of 81 is the same thing as 9. So I'll just give 9 here. So the next thing that I'm going to do, I have to find the dot product. From the first question A, I will say V1 dot this. Question B, I will say V1 dot this. V1 also dot what? Dot this. So if I'm going to find V1 dot V2, what should I going to get? So let's do it together. Don't forget I have I have I here. So I have to say I is something as 1. 1 multiplied by what? Multiplied by negative 3 plus I have negative 2. I have to say negative 2 multiplied by what? Also 6. G and G. 6. And therefore I have to say plus K and K, which is what? 2 multiplied by what? 2. So I have negative 3 plus negative, it will now become negative 12 plus what? Plus 4. As you can see, this and this, it will give me negative 15 plus what? Plus 4. So this should now be equals to what? This should now be equals to negative 11. So as you can see, the dot product of this V1 and V2, it is 11. So the next thing that I'm going to do is that I have to take a look to dot product of V1 and what? And this V3. Dot product of V1 dot V3, it will be what? I'll take V1, which is 1, I and I is the same thing as 2 in this V, in this question what? Question V. And therefore 2 for J, negative 2 and 7, I have to say plus negative 2 multiplied by what? Multiplied by 7. And I have to say plus K and K, 2 multiplied by 6, 2 multiplied by what? By 6. The next thing that I'm going to do, I have to say this should now be 1 minus 14. So then I have to say plus 12. So at the end, what should I going to get? If I said this and this, I'll get negative 12 plus 12. This will go with this. At the end, I'll get 0. So let me clean this also. So I have to say v1 dot b4. Where is v1? This is v1, this is v4. 1 multiplied by this negative 3. Dot product, don't forget, it is multiplying the like terms I and I, k and k, j and j, and at the end the I and j and k will become 1, and multiplying by 1 is that actual number. So I have to say 1 multiplied by negative 3, because I and I have to say plus negative 2 multiplied by 6. Then I have to say plus 2, which is k and k, multiplied by negative what? Negative 6. At the end, I'll get negative 3 minus 2 of this and this, and therefore plus, again, it will become negative minus what? Minus 12. So this and this, I'll get minus what? Minus 15 minus what? Minus 12. It's the same thing as adding these two. If I said 15 and 12, it will become 7 and it will become 2. So at the end, I'll get negative 27. So as you can see, I can be able to say, let me just say v1 dot v3, it is 0, and v1 dot v4, it is negative 27, so that I'll have space. So the next thing that I'm going to do, I have to find the angle. If I take a look to the A, I will use v1 and v2. So this angle should now become cos inverse of what? Cos inverse of v1, v2. Don't forget, we already find v1, v2, which is 11 divided by magnitude of this and this, magnitude of b1 and what? And v2. So we have to take a look to this and this. If I say 7 multiplied by 3, I'll get 21. But don't forget, I think the dot product of v1 and v2, it is negative what? Negative 11. But we have to prove it again and see whether it is negative 11 or what, or not. Because I have v1 multiplied by this, it will give me negative 3, and this, it will give me plus what? Plus negative 2 times 6, and therefore plus 2 multiplied by 2. At the end, negative 3 minus what? Minus 12 plus what? Plus 4. At the end, if I say this and this, I'll get negative what? 15 plus 4. Yes, this is what? Negative 11. So therefore, this is negative 11. Sorry for confusion. So I have to take a look. Magnitude of v1, which is 3, magnitude of v2, which is this. So I have to say this multiplied by this, it will give me 21. So cos inverse, and here I have negative. Cos inverse of negative 11 divided by 2, which is 121.6. So 121.6 degree. So the second question, so I'm going to use v1 and v3. v1 dot v3, so I will say cos inverse of v1 dot v3, v1 dot v3, which is 0, divided by what? This and this. So at the end, if I say what is the value of v1, magnitude of v1 and magnitude of what? v3, I'm using this b3, so I will say 3 multiplied by root of 90. Whenever I say this multiply this divided by this, I will get 0. Either if I multiply or not, this, it will give me completely 0. And therefore, if I say the cos inverse of what? Cos inverse of 0, I think is the same thing as 90 degree. 90 degree. So then v1, v4, the last but not the least, is the same thing as cos inverse of what? v1 dot b4, v1 dot b4, which is negative 27. And therefore, if I say magnitude 1, which is this, multiplied by what? 9, I'll get what? If I said 9 multiplied by 3 is the same thing as 27. 9 times 1, 9, 9 times 2, 18, 9 times 3, which is 27. So at the end, this will go with this. I will end up with what? Negative what? Negative 1. And therefore, if I take as we all know, cos inverse of negative 1 is the same thing as 180. So therefore, the angle is the same thing as 180 degree. So these are the angles. So this is what? This is the angle that we are asked to find. So guys, this is all I have for you for this video. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thanks you for watching. Have a nice day.